Hi, and welcome back to another episode of SOS Podcast. With me, as always, is Shaolin.
The Allen.
And today we're talking about Marvel Comics, the birth of Marvel Comics, fucking all the greatness. I love Marvel so much, especially early Marvel. Like, not like early Marvel, but just the story of Marvel pretty much is like, they are the modern superhero, and they're the reason why comics are what they are now. You know what
Marvel is just amazing.
It's
Everything is legendary.
Oh yeah. So many characters.
Awesome topics,
awesome themes. They revolutionized a lot of shit. They fucking created so many superheroes, like
X-Men.
And the movies now, they're huge. So last episode we talked about DC and basically like the birth of the superhero with Superman and Batman and how like in the 30s and 40s and almost like early 50s that shit was immensely popular.
Yeah.
Because, which is what we're going to get into today, World War II.
World War II. Crazy time in America.
Yeah, probably the biggest war. I mean, impact-wise, I feel like it was fucking huge. So much bad shit happened
But it did create a lot of creativity amongst everyone.
Oh yeah, a lot of patriotism. They really like. So what do I got here for that? So they went to war with us, but they actually went a little before. And there's a quote I have from Stan Lee here. He says, "We were fighting the Nazis in our comic books before our government was, like before we were even in the war." Like the Captain America was going in there and fucking rounding up Nazis and shit. And in comic books, you can have instant victory. Like for instance, they made Superman solve the war in 2 pages. Cause they're
I remember. I seen that. Yeah,
you saw that, right? And
yep.
like he's like, "Oh, we can do it in 2 pages," and he does because he's fucking Superman. So they were extremely like good. They're like all American, pro-war, like. So the American GIs really liked them, and it was actually it was so much like that it became primary reading material for them. Like they would get it in their care packages with cigarettes and gum and chocolate.
That's awesome.
They'd get a Captain America like punching Nazis and shit. So that's really cool, and they were into it.
Pushing to the edge.
Oh yeah, they really liked it and shit. So like that's where like Captain America comes about. And an interesting thing about Captain America is 7 months before Pearl Harbor, they had an issue where some unnamed, like, Asian country, like, bombed, like, a seaport.
Symbolism.
Yeah. 7 months before Pearl Harbor.
Symbolism.
And then when Pearl Harbor actually happened, like, Captain America was freaking so mad. And it says, what did I write here? His wrath was felt throughout the nations. He was pissed, man. It was awesome. I mean, I've read a couple from like the wartime. They're really cool. Like, and also they said in the comic books, Captain America would be like, instead of spending 10 cents on the membership card or you get like a tin badge, give 10 cents to war bonds. Like contribute to the war front. Like we're out here fighting the Nazis and shit. We need your help. And there was a lot of shortages of stuff.
We out here.
Yeah, and
crazy.
They needed paper, so when your mom's going through the house and she needs to give away paper, what's the first thing she's grabbing is the fucking comic book. Because, you know, it's a comic book. They're still viewed like that now, but I mean, they're a little more accepted. But back then it was like a dirty secret that, like, you read in the dark with a flashlight, because if you got caught, you might actually get in trouble. So...
Wow.
Yeah, and so after the war ended, pretty much we beat the main enemy. So there's no reason for superheroes. People are like over it. They're just like, we beat the enemy. We beat the ultimate enemy, the Germans. We don't need the slugfests that were in like the wartime comics. So they died off, and people started reading like animal comics, cute animal comics, like teenage love comics, horror stories like Tales from the Crypt, and like Tales of Horror and Suspense and Mystery. So that happened, and now we're getting to the mid-50s now. And also another, to put it in perspective too, during World War II, comics went from 15 million to 25 million in a year.
Wow.
during the war. That's how popular they were. Because it was just pro-American, you know? It was like therapeutic to watch superheroes like slug all the fucking, the Nazis and like win.
Yeah.
So it was so popular. But yeah, they died out. People weren't into superheroes anymore. And then, we got the Comics Code. So this guy from, I think from Munich, he was like a psychiatrist, and he went to all these juvenile centers or jails and asked all the young kids there like questions, and he said 100% of them read comic books. So he's looking at all these comic books, and like Tales from the Crypt and stuff like that was really graphic. Like on the cover it would be like some bitch's fucking head, like some guy's holding some bitch's head. One's like
some serial killer shit.
Some dude's at a counter and there's a bunch of human parts. Like he's selling like really gross fucking fucked up shit for the 50s. But that's awesome. I mean, it's freedom of speech.
Psychologically different.
Yeah, and we have a lot more gorier comics now. There's so much gore. Like even in Marvel, there's a lot of gore.
Oh, yeah.
There's one issue where the Blob like eats some X-Men, and the page is him like ripping out her intestines with his teeth and shit. There's blood everywhere. So we've come a long way with like gore wise, but so this guy hated fucking comic books, and he like made it his mission to destroy them. Just
purge books?
them. He was like, it's destroy. They had this whole Senate hearing. I think it's called this. It's like perversion of the youth or destruction of the youth, and there it's like it's comic books and blah blah blah. So at Timely Comics, which is the precursor to Marvel, they're called Timely. Stan Lee, full name Stanley Lieber, started working in the 30s as an intern, or no, not an intern. He was like a temp. Like he got coffee, he was an assistant, and he was just this young kid. So like he just working there for a long time was able to write some stories and stuff. So he got comfortable in
well known
in Timely Comics of like a go-to guy. He was making comics at this time in the early 50s, or no, mid 50s, I'm sorry. And he was doing a lot of cowboy stories and like monster stories. And this Comics Code was coming in, and he said, I'm bringing him up now because he says a really awesome thing that's like just facts. He's like saying, he's like, oh, it was so, I watched this interview, he's like, it was so ridiculous, the Comic Code and this whole like court hearing for like if comic books are dangerous. And he said they said, oh, 100% of these kids that did wrong read comic books. And he's like, what if I told you 100% of them drank milk? Like, what does it fucking mean? Like, it's just comic books. It's just art. It's not turning kids. The same thing now with school shooters and video games.
Even music.
Even music. Like, oh, the Columbine shooters listened to Marilyn Manson. Like, no, they didn't. Like, they did like heavy metal, but it's like, there has to be a reason for everything. It just can't be kids that are fucking dysfunctional in their brain.
They just want to point the finger.
Yeah. Like, same thing like with like video games. Like, oh, violence in video games.
San Andreas.
You have it in you to kill another person.
Yeah, it's a
mere
decision.
Like,
you know?
media can persuade you or may, you know.
Influence
but it's in you to do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to listen to like a rap song and then just go rob a store just because. Like, that
because
shit
they
has
said
to be,
right?
like,
yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, they won. So they made the Comics Code. The publishers, so they established the Comic Code to just like be like, all right, we'll do this so we can still keep, you know, our jobs, and like, this is how these people are making money. So they had the Comics Code. So much fucking stupid shit, bro. Like, you couldn't have the like words. You couldn't have certain words. You couldn't have ghoul, zombie, werewolf, wolfman, mystery, horror. These words could not be on comics at all.
That's insane.
Along with like a bunch of other stupid like censored shit, just like, oh, that looks too violent. It will be like too many dead bodies on this explosion of hope. Well, not hope, but it will be like, at the time, it will be like a cowboy shooting someone, and there'll be like the puff of smoke on that gun's too violent, like take it out, and just shit like this. So it like ruined comics. It made them all like teenage censored. So it was all like cute animals and fucking, like, teenage heartthrob, like, love, like, romance, you know what I mean?
Took its dignity.
So, and the only 3 superheroes survived this whole thing. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. They got fucked up. Batman became, like, a father figure and not, like, a mysterious, like, dark Avenger. He just, like, was an asshole. Like, I hate this time period in comics. Yeah, Superman, he kind of stayed the same because it's always fine, like, truth, justice, the American way. Wonder Woman stayed the same. Only 3 superheroes.
That's crazy.
So, during this time, there's a lot of preamble to fucking Marvel, that's why I love it, because there's a lot of things that had to fucking happen, and they also had a lot of talent. So the new Flash gets introduced. The Flash we know now, the red suit, he gets introduced. He gets brought back from the 30s or 40s, because in the 40s he had a tin hat and, like, just a shirt. So they made the Flash we know now.
Nice.
And with that, they brought back a couple other heroes. They made the Justice League. This sold really fucking well. So, as legend goes, the publisher at Timely Comics, which is Marvel, and DC Comics played golf together all the time. So they're playing golf one day, and the guy goes, the DC publisher's like, this Justice League's selling like crazy, like this team of superheroes. And I think his name's Marv Goodman, for Timely Comics, who was Stan Lee's boss, was like, like, maybe let's try that, because we're not making too much success with our stupid, like, Western stories or monster stories. So he goes to Stan and he says, I want you to make a team of superheroes. So that's the setup to the first Marvel superhero.
Yeah.
Okay?
I already know.
So Stan Lee, like I said before, he was working his way up. He was writing his first credited thing, I think, was on like just a back page of him, like it was a short story about Captain America, but it was all words. And he was writing monster comics and westerns, and he was getting really bored with it. He was like, I can't do this kid shit anymore.
Yeah.
He said he would be at parties. This is so funny. He said he would be at parties and people would be like, oh, so what do you do for a living? And he's like, oh, I write stories. And he's like, and he'd be like, I hope that would be it. And I would walk away, but the person would follow him and be like, what kind of stories? And he's like, oh, for children. And then he'd walk away and they'd follow him and they'd be like, but what kind of stories? And he'd eventually have to be like, I write comic books. And then they'll laugh at him and walk away. Because, like, it was just...
Shamed on.
It was just a kid, like, he's writing comic books. It wasn't the medium that is now, where these comic book artists are superstars. Back then, it was just blue-collar guys and artists just working. So, his wife, this is, like, in comic book history. This is, like, legend right here, I'm about to tell you. You'll hear this everywhere. So his wife, he was getting fed up with it. He's like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go try to write. So his wife goes, okay, but before you leave, take up this assignment about the superheroes and do it the way you would always want to do it. Because he always wanted to write for more mature people.
Yeah.
At the time, he was writing for semi-illiterate adults and really, really little children. And he's like, I want to write for people who are intelligent and, like, actually have philosophy. And, like, because DC was like cookie cutter Boy Scouts. Like, it was just like, they're all like squeaky clean. So he's like, alright. So his wife said, why don't you do it your way? The worst thing can happen is you'll get fired for not listening, and you want to quit anyway. So just do one the way you want to do it. So he's like, okay. So he makes, with Jack Kirby, makes the Fantastic Four.
The Fantastic
Issue
Four.
number 1. And this shit blew off. Like, it fucking took off. You know what I mean? It was... So what he did, basically, is... Like I said, DC was squeaky clean. They're all Boy Scouts. Even Batman, who started off with a gun killing people, and just, like, being the badass we know Batman as today.
The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight. Like, they're all just, you know, super, super clean. So he comes in... And the Fantastic Four, issue number 1, which is, they go to Mars. It was inspired by the moon race at the time, 1961, I think it came out.
Sputnik.
Yeah, shit like that. So they try to go to Mars. They get caught in a cosmic storm. They fall down, and they have powers. But what's different is they don't get along. They fucking pretty much hate each other. they don't like their powers. The Thing, when he turns into the Thing, I read all these the other day. They're really good. He's like disgusted by the way he looks and he hates it. You know what I mean? So like,
and that's what they based that movie off of. Fantastic Four, the first one.
Like they don't get along and they're fighting all the time. Like,
that's awesome.
It's like inner turmoil. Like they don't like being superheroes. They don't particularly like their powers. They don't want to help people. They just want to. We're gonna get into it more with all of them because they all have these common things. And at the time, kids and high school students were like, "Wow."
Yeah, that'll draw you in.
Like, especially at the time, this is baby boomer time, and they're a lot more inward. In the 40s and 30s, everyone's like, be a man, like, go fucking fight on the shores and die like a fucking hero. In the 60s, it's like all depression and like looking inward at emotions and shit. So this shit was perfect timing. And Stan Lee is just the best, and he's just a good writer. I've read him.
Godly.
He's so great. But what he did, too, this is another fact. He took his name, Stanley Lieber, and he says this all the time. He says he took his first name, Stan Lee, and he used that because he wanted to save his real name for the great American novel that he never read. Because he just stayed in comics. Because he was like, I got it all right here. I have millions of people reading my shit. And like, I'm tackling subjects. I'm tackling war and like all these ideals and everything. So Fantastic Four, bam. Instant success. So popular. And then they bring out the Hulk. Which is
The Incredible.
This is another thing too. Marvel's all science. It's all nuclear because it was the 60s. Before it was super serums, Captain America super serum, or it's like 40s shit.
Yeah.
You know, saucer men and stuff. Well, no, that's more like the 60s. So this is more science. So Bruce Wayne, you know, in the original origin, there's like a bomb testing site, and a teenager runs out, and Bruce Banner, a doctor, he goes out there, and he gets hit, and he turns into the Hulk. And the Hulk originally can talk, and he like has a disdain for humans, and it's like this he's clashing with his inner demons. The Hulk is his true self, his true feelings, and what does he think? He hates humans. He's like,
that shit's
you're fucking
deep.
weak. Like, it's great. So that took off too, and also in his first run, he was gray. Because they originally envisioned him as gray, but they couldn't. I don't know the specifics. I never looked too much into it because it just never made sense to me, though. They said they couldn't keep the color gray. They wanted consistent between pages, so they turned him green because they could always do green the same color, the same shade. I don't understand how that works, but that's the
story.
The story behind why he's green. So that comes out. And then the rest are in no particular order, but Spider-Man, I believe, comes next. Amazing Fantasy, it's like 59 or some shit like that. And we have Peter Parker, and what Stan Lee says, once again, because he's the man with the fucking stories, he's got all these great tidbits and stories. He went to his publisher, Goodman, again, and he's like, I got another superhero idea. And he said he was just sitting in his office, like, naming off different animals as like insert animal name man, and he just went down the list and he got to Spider-Man, and he was like, wow, like Spider-Man, like that sounds fucking cool. So he thought of that.
That's why I feel like Spider-Man is so corporate, edgy, you know.
Oh yeah, because it's so out there. At the time,
I feel like it pertains to the way he was feeling at the time with his.
I want to get strange and weird, and like I want
with his publishers. I
want to fucking turn this 360 around. So he's talking to his. He's like, I got another idea for a superhero, and he's like, okay, what is it? And he's like, a teenager who basically has all these problems. He has teenager problems, and the guy was like, do you know like what superheroes are? Like, why do you want? Superheroes aren't teenagers. Superheroes are men, and they don't have any problems and shit. And he was like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So we did it. Fucking Spider-Man, boom. Like, the most popular, like
up.
on the charts, right? Like forever. I feel like maybe a little less now. Probably Iron Man or Captain America is up there, but it's Spider-Man number one, Batman, Superman. That it's been that way since then. Like he is just so fucking popular. Everyone knows who Spider-Man is. You go to any country in this world, You show them Spider-Man, they know who Spider-Man is, you know? And why did he get so popular? Because he had problems. He would like I keep saying, like, they were humans. Like,
it related
to everyone. He got pimples when he would have a big date, or like he would get sick, or like he would have to pay his rent and he didn't have money. Aunt May would be sick, and he just he had all these problems, all these teenage problems, and he didn't like being Spider-Man. He didn't fucking get any. Sometimes he would be bitter and be like, what do I do this for? And like, I don't get anything out of this. Sometimes people will die, or the guy will get away, or it won't go the way I want. And also, like, it doesn't help him. He can't get the girl at the end of the day because he's Spider-Man. The powers mean nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what it turns into is my favorite at least. I mean, Batman's pretty close. But like, revenge stories are just like kind of, like, they're simple. It's just like, oh, he's got incredible vengeance for what happened. He hates the injustice of it. But Spider-Man is, with great power comes great responsibility. And it's so, to me at least, just the way I relate to it, it's so deep and it's so perfect for a superhero.
That's a teenager as well, yeah.
That's a teenager who hates being Spider-Man. He's like, man, all I get, everyone, you know, the Daily Bugle doesn't like him. They're always putting these horrible stories about him. And he's like, why do I do this shit? Because I have the power. And it's my fucking responsibility to go save this person because I can. And that's, like, Superman doesn't have that shit. He's just, oh, I'm fucking the best. I'm Superman.
I'm
like,
Superman.
I'm Superman. I mean, that's awesome in itself that he's just like, I am Superman. But, you know, like, all these characters don't have that one resolve. That he will always do what is right, no matter how bad he turns out, no matter how much it might hurt or whatever, or how much he needs to focus on being Peter Parker, he will always have to be Spider-Man. He's always Spider-Man. So that's awesome. That's Spider-Man. So fucking great. Like, I just can't. I could talk about Spider-Man all day. So many great stories, all this shit. So we got Hulk, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. We got the Thor comes out, Iron Man, X-Men, which is different from the X-Men we know now. So what happened? So I'll go into X-Men now. Because I'm done. That's pretty much how Marvel started, and they got really popular that way. Because people could relate to them and shit. So X-Men, when he started X-Men, he's sitting there and he's like, man, there's a lot of racism going on. There's a lot of prejudice. People feel divided. Everything's divided. So let's do one about that. So we did the X-Men, and X-Men, the original X-Men, are very different. It's same character. Like I think Cyclops is in there. He might not be. So you got Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, or Mrs. Marvel. No, it's Marvel Girl. Professor X, Beast, who doesn't have hair. He's just a big guy.
In the original.
Wow. Angel. And there's someone Banshee or some shit like that. There's another flying one. So this one, a lot of like women and like black people and just like any other non-white person really dug this shit because it was touching on all these themes that you would never dream of reading. And like, people don't understand that comic books maybe not now, but back in the day, they were the ones saying this shit. You know what I mean? Like, people will read them and be like, what? Like, these guys are crazy. Like
way before music.
Way before music.
No. I'm saying like way before people started putting that type of.
You know what I mean? Like,
started putting that type of atmosphere into music. You
know what I'm music saying? And like movie. I mean, yeah, there was movies and shit, but like.
But I get what you're saying.
Completely. They were really tackling it. They were like doing all these topics,
getting the vibe off of you. You felt it hard. That's awesome.
And like, comics have always been doing that. Always. Another thing about the Comics Code too, there's a guy who wrote a lot of the Tales of Horror and Tales from the Crypt. He was like the maker of it, created it. He wrote this one. He wrote the last issue to Tales of Suspense or some shit, and it was about an astronaut. It was this big blowout thing, and at the end, the astronaut has his helmet on the whole time, and he takes it off, and it's a black guy. and this was in like the 50s. Like this was crazy. And the Comics Code sent it back. They're like, you need to make him look more white. You need to like take the beads of perspiration off his forehead. You need to make his brow not look as black. And he's like, this is ridiculous. Like, he's a black character. Like, what the fuck? Like, this guy's really cool, man. And that he did that, and he said fuck it, and he just put it out. And like, they didn't stop it. And like, that's like an awesome thing for him to do. Like, this fucking white guy who's writing comics is like, let me do this right now. Fuck these people and their code.
Yeah,
and
fuck
shit.
what they say. Yeah.
So X-Men were, as back where I was saying, so yeah, they're really different, but they're addressing all these issues. So then fast forward, because I just want to talk about X-Men now, to the 70s. And so Wolverine first appeared in a Hulk issue. And
First appearance, huh?
In a Hulk issue. And he looks the same, but he looks a little different. He didn't have his background there. It was just, I think he had a different backstory that was like he got his powers from a Wolverine, like a creature, like, or some shit like that, or he was evolved from a Wolverine. It's something crazy. But they made it at the time because they're gearing up in Marvel Studios at the time for this X-Men re-release. They're gonna, like, a reboot pretty much. But they're gonna do it from all different areas of the world. So the guy was just like, oh, I made a mutant, and I made him Canadian, and I said, hey, when you do this X-Men shit, here, you got a Canadian mutant that you can use. He's already established now. So, I don't know what number it is. I believe it's X-Men, like, it's giant-sized X-Men, right?
Yeah.
Chris Claremont and the artist, which I don't know, unfortunately. And that had, I think, Nightcrawler, Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine, Colossus, like all the classic fucking X-Men.
Originals.
Like, yeah, and this shit, like, took off. This was, like, the most, in the 70s, the most popular at the time. It was so fucking popular. The Chris Claremont X-Men run, and I think that's the Dark Phoenix saga.
Dark Phoenix,
That's
yeah.
where, and, like, also at this time, or maybe, a little earlier, Marvel gets into the cosmic shit, which gets in the Silver Surfer. And I don't know too much about Silver Surfer, so maybe, I know you've been reading some Silver Surfer, so what's some good, like, Silver Surfer things that you find that he's, like, likable?
So what's really awesome about Silver Surfer here is he's basically Galactus's, like, pet, kinda.
Mm.
He, like, goes out and he finds the worlds for Galactus. That's, like, basically what
He's like his lapdog.
Yeah, exactly. And
I think I knew that.
His real name is Norman Rad.
Oh shit.
Or something like that, I'm pretty sure, But
Doesn't got like a wife or his wife died or something?
His wife died and
does he, I don't know if you know this, does he always look like this, or did Galactus make him the Silver Surfer?
Galactus gave him the cosmic power. The power cosmic.
That's so crazy, man.
So that's why
imagine if he was in the movies.
That's why he's able to travel from dimension to dimension, because he has cosmic powers granted from Galactus, which is awesome.
That's so dope.
So Silver Surfer is really good. We got some really good ones. Infinity Gauntlet crossovers, you know what I'm saying?
He was also created by Jack Kirby, which I can't believe I haven't mentioned him yet. Jacob Kurtzberg, that was his original name. He's like the god of comic book art. Like, he introduced so much, like a whole new level of emotion and movement and just action. Like the classic comic book shit, that's all Jack Kirby. He's a fucking god. Like, he's so great. His art's so simple. And
I'd love to own some of his pieces.
I know, right, man? He's probably got some art prints, like, on eBay or some shit. But he made Silver Surfer, and he said he wanted to give him, like, a craft. And he was like, I was tired of drawing spaceships, so I gave him a surfboard. And, like, he made Galactus, all the cosmic shit, fucking... He did the New Gods over at DC, but that was, like... But he was there, he was right there with Stan Lee at the beginning. And he has a lot... I'm ashamed that I didn't, like, mention it before, because it's not all Stan Lee. There's a lot of people involved. Jack Kirby did a lot of the art. He had a lot of the ideas. He co-created Fantastic Four, you know. But Silver Surfer got really popular in colleges because it was philosophy,
Yeah.
like all that good stuff, and they really related to him because he talked like a hippie, like a big hippie, and this was in the 70s. But he's always in. If there's a cosmic shit going on, you better believe Silver
Kirby's
Surfer.
in there, yeah.
You know, and Kirby too. Like you can go to Jack Kirby back in the day and say draw universe, and he draw a fucking universe. You know what I mean? Like that's so awesome.
The ideas and everything within these comics are just godly. Like the way they pictured how a cosmic universe would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I love it. So we got X-Men, Hulk, you know. So I'll throw this in there too. So during Marvel went bankrupt. I don't know like too much about this, but they went bankrupt I think in the 90s. And the studio itself went bankrupt, but Spider-Man alone was worth like billions of dollars as just a property. So all these companies dove in, and Sony, I think it's Sony, yeah. Sony, at the time, I don't know if they bought it from someone else, but Sony jumped in. They're like, Spider-Man ours. Like, we have the rights to movies, games, not comics. That changes. Fox comes in. They're like Fantastic Four, X-Men, Silver Surfer, Galactus, all the cosmic shit, ours.
What?
Yeah, 20th Century Fox is Hulk. They grab Hulk. All these properties are worth so fucking much. And this is just how great
the ideas of
the ideas
guys
were.
came,
and
yeah.
also how, like, just the man in charge who did this, and I think it's an asshole, Mike Perlmutter or some shit, but I don't know what company it was. I don't know what film company it was that got the rest. I don't fucking know, man. It might be Columbia or some shit like that. They got Iron Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, Thor, you know, all these like characters that no one really like Iron Man was never crazy popular. Captain America was never crazy popular. He was when he was created, but when they brought him back,
the war's over, dude.
the war's over. That's cool too, because he was, you know, it was over, and then they did Avengers, and then Stan Lee was like, oh, I'll bring this character back from way back when, and it'll be pretty cool, like bring him back from the 40s, like he was Frozen, like, you know what I mean? So that's cool. But he was never popular. He was just always in there. Like, he's a popular Avenger, and he is a popular Marvel character. Like, if you read Infinity Gauntlet, he's up there with, he's like front in line of everyone.
Yeah.
He's the leader.
He's like the captain.
He's captain, like...
Yeah.
I love Captain America.
Captain America.
I'm happy people appreciate him now, because I was always like, he's fucking sick, dude. Iron Man, I mean, I like Iron Man. He's cool.
Tony Stark.
Tony Stark's the shit, but like I've never...
Raekwon and
I know, right?
Ghostface's idol right there.
They fucking love that shit. I love that Wu-Tang likes comics and shit. That's so cool. That's how influential this shit was. You had like these hard hood motherfuckers, like in fucking...
Me first? No.
like reading the fucking comic books with superheroes and muscled men. It's because the themes and what they were telling you and what they were saying.
Just the knowledge behind
Like,
all this is great.
I hate the way they view fucking comic books. So
I know, I was actually at a house earlier today and people were just like, I mean, it grabbed a couple of people's attention. They were just like, what?
Right.
Comics? But a couple of people were just like, yo, man, what are you doing? You're reading comics, man? I'm
That's
like,
what I
yo,
mean.
get
I
the
hate it.
fuck out of
it's
here,
like, bro, like they're for adults. Like,
Bro,
yeah, they're
that's
for
awesome,
kids,
like-
but like adults can relate to them.
This is what movies are based off of as well, you know what I mean?
This is like
this
all
is
these great directors.
This is a
bro,
movie right here in your mind.
right? Oh, that's another thing too, and which I'm like actually currently gonna get into drawing comics.
Me too, definitely.
I got
yeah.
like, you know, I'm really putting an effort into it because it's my dream, man. But with comic books and also with novels and shit, there's no budget. If you make a movie, you have X amount of money to make it look as good as you want. If you want the movie to look amazing, you have to spend billions of dollars. A comic book, there's no budget. You can have a fight in the fucking... You can show two universes at the same time.
Colliding
Or just Galactus or like fucking the Celestials and shit. Like just like all beings. Like you can draw this shit and it's so great. And
it's your idea.
People just think it's all slugfest and it's really not. It really gets like deep and they're just a great medium. I just love comics. Especially American comics. I mean...
I'm about to start drawing some of the Silver Surfer.
Hell yeah.
X-Men.
They're colorful. Look at this fucking color, man. That shit's so great. But, so what was I saying before? So the movie company that had the rest of them, which is now owned by Disney, I think it was just Marvel Movie Studios or some shit. They put together this plan and they're like, let's do a shared universe of movies. So they planned it out. And they start with fucking Iron Man and they brought Robert Downey Jr. who like was a huge drug addict in the 90s, like sold his kid for drugs and shit like that, like washed out, bro, like not in Hollywood, just like ODing all over the place. And he cleaned up his act after rehab and he's like trying to get back in the movies. He did the Sherlock Holmes movie and then he landed Iron Man. Fucking, he's like the most popular actor right now. I love it. Like, he's such a nice person and a genuine guy that you're like, word, like, you fought and you fucking struggled and like, yeah, you did some fucked up things, but you were on drugs. Like, damn. Like,
Who doesn't?
But he's clean now and he's all for the kids. He's all for these Marvel movies. He respects it. He doesn't treat it like shit. Like, you have people like Tom Cruise who are asked to be a superhero and they're like, have all these demands and they're like, like, I'm fucking blah, and like...
Yeah, it's bullshit.
When he came at it, he's like, you know, I'm gonna be faithful, I'm gonna actually respect the medium and like respect the fans, and he's an idol to be looked up to. And someone's at my fucking door, I don't know. So they made the movies and... Is it your brother? We fucking derailed this whole thing. So I'm just gonna keep talking. They pretty much made the Iron Man movie, and then they started making all these Marvel movies. Who is it? Here, come over here. Come over here. Start talking about these comics. Sorry. Some fucked up shit.
So yeah, now we have Astonishing X-Men issue 1, which is great, right here laying in front of me. Issue 20, all by Wedon and Cassaday, great artists and writers. Warren Ellis, Simon Bianchi.
People are stalking me right now.
Technical
derailing the fucking episode for fucking
technical difficulties. Sorry,
random people knocking on my door for no reason and then driving away. But we roll with it because that's how we fucking do shit.
We out here.
Like, I ain't got time to pause it and shit. But
nah, man.
as I was saying, they made the movies, and you know what happened. Like, the biggest force right now in media, fucking so popular. You fucking find anybody who don't love the Marvel movies. Everyone's a fan, which is also another problem with me, at least, is
there's new people jumping
there's
into
new people
this.
jumping into it, and that's fine.
But like what it does is it makes our collectibles go up.
That's another thing I should talk about real quick. So comic books became a collectible like in the 80s. People just started realizing, because during the Golden Age and the war, when they were throwing them away and ripping them up and shit, all of a sudden, these Golden Age comic books, if you found one in good condition, it's worth thousands and thousands of dollars because it's like so fucking rare. Like Superman, like Action Comics #1 is ridiculous. I don't know the number. I'm not going to try to guess. There's a couple. There's a handful of them out there, and they're worth trillions of dollars. And
that's insane.
basically people started collecting them and just collecting and collecting and collecting, and they shot up for a little bit. But then also it devalued them too, because for something to be worth money, it needs to be worthless. Like they were throwing them away for the war, so they need to be worthless. And basically, like Death of Superman, like everybody and their mother bought 4 copies just because they thought it was going to be worth so much money, and it's not. It's worth nothing.
Because there was so many prints.
They made so many fucking prints, and so yeah, and and then with the movies too, what we were saying is you have all these people coming in who are collecting, not because you should collect comics, and this is why you're my friend, and like I fuck with you, is because fucking he's not just buying this shit because the movies are out and like he likes the movies and shit. He's not buying them for money. He's not putting them away and never touching them. What fucking Alan is doing, which is what you all should fucking do, is buy comics because you want to read them, because you like them, and because you want to own them, and fucking, I'm not saying rip them up and fucking throw them around. Yeah, take care of them if they're particularly old, but get comics because you like comics and you want to read comics.
And you want to read the stories involved behind them.
You want to actually read them and fucking reflect and like, not just, don't go to a comic shop and spend $2,000 on like a fucking 3 boxes just because, well, this is my retirement when I'm 60, and never touch them, put them in a fucking safe or whatever. Like, no, that's fucking retarded. Like
I just bought like how many? I don't even know. I bought a couple.
I bought like, two good handfuls,
and I've read every single one already, just because one pulls you into the next. And don't start off with anything like out of the ordinary. Try and get and go with like a series.
Yeah. So for anyone basically who wants to get into comics, a big like thing that people fall into is they want to read from the beginning of something, and you just can't. If you find a particular storyline, that's fine. But I mean, this is different. If you really want to go out there and read fucking Fantastic Four #1 through 649, fucking please go ahead. Like, I do not have the time for that shit. I have to skip like at least. Like, we'll get into it in what we're reading,
I'm just really interested in, like, some storylines, some main characters.
Yeah.
Others are more popular than others.
My surefire way is, let's say you are wanting to get into reading comic books. You're like, man, I've always kind of been into it. I never picked one up. I've never really read one. Or never really read, like, a storyline. Find a character that you really like or you really idolize or whatever. So let's just say, like, fucking an easy one, like Spider-Man. Like, you know, I always love Spider-Man. I want to read some dope Spider-Man things. Just go on the internet, type in, like, awesome or, like, good Spider-Man storylines, and it'll give you Amazing Spider-Man issue 49 through 55, or Web Spider-Man 300. That's a good one. That's what you gotta do if you want to get in. Don't just be like, I'm gonna start off Spider-Man #1, because I tried doing that when I was a teenager, and I read, like, I focused on one, though. Like, I have the 3 volumes of Spider-Man, which is Spider-Man 1 through, like, 65 or some shit of the original. It's in black and white. It sucks, but that's all I had at the time. It was, like, the early 2000s, and, like, I read all of those. So Spider-Man I've read a lot, but the thing, I'll save it for what we're reading. So, yeah, basically, if you just want to get in comics, just know there's fucking billions of just Marvel comics. There's fucking millions of just
DC.
Just DC. And then there's other, like, Dark Horse has some, they have all the properties. I like Dark Horse. They got, like, Terminator, Alien,
what? Comics?
Predator. I was reading a Michael Myers one the other day.
Comic?
Yeah.
What?
Fucking Friday the 13th. They got some dope ones. No. The Hellraiser ones, there's different versions. I think it's like the second Hellraiser series or some shit. It's awesome. Also, The Mask.
You know what was crazy that I read, or I meant that I seen in the comic shop the other day?
What?
I saw some Star Wars comics.
Star Wars comics.
And I shit myself.
They're coming back strong. So Marvel, yeah, we got it. Alright. Because once it's a fucking hour, this shit's gonna turn off. So okay. So Marvel bought Star Wars in the early when it first came out because no one fucking. I'll get all into it in our Star Wars episode because that is so fascinating. How that
Yeah,
movie
that's
got
a
made.
whole episode by
So
itself.
they brought it just because it was fantastical and colorful, and they're like, "Damn,
The story
let's
even
get
behind
it."
it, yeah.
Fucking Star Wars blew up. Of course it did. It's Star Wars. So everyone's reading this Star Wars comic, and Marvel has it, and they just made a good investment. Like, you know what I mean? But it was trash. I mean, the early Star Wars comics are horrible. They're really bad. But once it gets into the expanded universe, like in the 80s, where they're actually writing, like this was stupid stories. Luke fights them fucking this random alien race, and it's all campy and it means nothing. It's not really linked to the Star Wars movies. So in the 80s, they come and they actually do the expanded universe. And I'm getting way too much into Star Wars because we're going to save it for the Star Wars episode because that's going to be an epic episode. But yeah, Star Wars, amazing comics, especially now that they're like tying them in. They're like in between each movie. Fucking.
I want to find some episode 3 comic Star Wars.
I have the whole movie in comic book form, graphic novel form. It's so beautiful, yo. When Anakin, like, I know people hate the prequels and I have my problems with them, but in the comic book when Anakin gets dismembered and he's like, Obi-Wan, like, yo, it's so epic. Like in the comic, it's so great.
You
man.
could just feel the energy.
I just love comics more. Like, I relate to them more.
Nah, for real.
And also, what I love with comics is when you're reading them,
You get the chills.
you get the chills, and your brain like wires to it, and you're seeing it in motion.
Yeah,
Especially if it's really well
yeah.
drawn and like choreographed.
That's what I'm saying. These spark the idea of movies. You know, just when you're reading it,
That's like
you have the mental image all
directors
playing in
now like read comic books when they were kids, and they're inspired by them.
Exactly. That's awesome. Man.
It's so great. Like everyone that's like.
Would you
popular now-
Would you want to say too? What are we reading?
Yeah. Okay. Because we got 10 minutes. So this is gonna be the end segment, and I'm gonna say right now that it's gonna be called "What We Doing,"
What we doing?
because it's just so non-specific. But this can be what you're reading, what you're watching, what you're listening to, just any kind of media that you've been absorbing over the week. So I'll let you go first. You can pick you do whatever, because I know you picked up some good shit.
So I just picked up Weapon X. Marvel Comics presents Weapon X 73 through 84, which is basically Wolverine's whole entire story,
Or
backstory.
Weapon X.
Amazing. I read every single one already. Definitely buy that. Read that. It's great. I got also the Astonishing X-Men, which I've just recently been reading a lot of. It's all great.
What year was that from again?
2004. This is 2004 by Joss Whedon and John
Josh
Ca-
Whedon.
Yeah,
Johnny
Whedon.
Cassidy.
Yeah,
Is that on all of them?
basically, practically up until like issue. Up until like these ones. These ones are all different. 61.
These are good runs. I remember hearing a lot about them.
But they're
Or
awesome.
early
runs.
2000 comics, you know.
Yeah, these I love these. I cherish these. I read them all like 2 times.
Gonna
already.
go get some more.
Definitely some Silver Surfer. I got issue 31 here. I got 52,
What
which
year are
is these are all like
91. This is
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet time.
yeah, this is around Infinity Gauntlet, so it's a crossover for Silver Surfer. And I've just been, listening to a lot of good classic rock. You know what I'm saying? Tom Petty, you know what I mean? Fucking Nirvana, been out there. What about you? What you got?
So I've been reading, I tried to get up because I want to read the Galactus saga in the original Fantastic Four, which is like issue 31 through like 60 something. That's the introduction of the Silver Surfer too. But I wanted to just start reading because I was like doing all this research on Marvel and shit. And I already knew a lot of this stuff, and I have read some of these, or like just segments of them. But I just started from Fantastic Four #1 and read just 10 issues. I was like, I'll just read the first 10 because it has like Doctor Doom introduction. They bring back Namor, Submariner, and they're cool. It's different. It's really old, and like I don't recommend anyone reading them unless you really just are curious on how it started and like how they call it the Marvel method. how
The
they
Marvel method.
how they drew, how they wrote. It was like a bullpen. They just had people throwing ideas, and like they would have Stanley said this fucking John Romita, I think his name is. He's a great comic book Spider-Man artist. He said he would see like in Stan's office, like someone choking him. Like he would just see like his chest up with hands around his neck, and like he would like go run and look, and it's like Stan choking himself in front of like writers and shit. He's like, I want him to be like this, and like he'd be jumping on his desk and like fucking being so animated. Like have fucking Spider-Man swing like this, and like he'll do the pose and shit. So this was a great environment to create awesome comics. So anyway, I've been reading Fantastic Four. It's pretty good. What else was I reading? Oh fuck, it's Fantastic Four. Oh yeah, this is from the other episode that got fucked up. That everyone needs to read this shit if you are into Marvel. Books of Doom. That shit.
Books of Doom
is so fucking good. Doctor Doom origin story that ties in and fits to his original origin in the 60s. It is so fucking good. It's 6 issues. Yeah, the birth and rise of Doctor Doom. Some great shit. He is evil as fuck. And it's like, yo, this part.
I love when, like, it'll be like, you dare defy Doom?
Right? And, like, this part, he's, like, in college. He's, like, sitting back and watching everyone laugh and, like, go on dates and, like, partying. And he's like all these, he's like all these insects. These trivial emotions. And he's like, I'm so smart. And he's, like, the smartest person there and shit. And then, like, he goes to the fucking Tibetan mansion or whatever. He learns a lot of his powers and shit. And they make his armor. Remember I showed you that shit where he's like, bring me the mask.
Oh,
he puts that shit on. He's like, now I am Doom. Yo,
I'm complete.
And then he raids Latveria, takes Latveria back. So epic. Yo, I was going to show you, there's this page where he's like choking out the leader. Because have you ever seen Doctor Doom? He's got the 2 silver things right here. Or the gold.
Yeah.
The guy's wearing it and I'm reading it. I'm like, oh shit. So he walks in there and he like strangles him and shit and kills him and takes the shit and he's like, I rule this place now. It's great. So yeah, that's what we're reading this week. It'll probably change by next week. I know he's gonna have more X-Men and shit, so that's awesome. And that's it. Worship Broly.
Worship Broly.
Always remember to worship Broly. And that'll be it. We'll try to do this every Sunday. We're gonna try to get on this regular mentality of doing this. Our next...
serial killers, you know what I'm saying? We out here.
That's the next one. Alright, bye.